This is Peter Queally. You're listening to Vibe 105.
Vibe Talks. More than just music.
Hey everybody, this is Giancarlo Aulino reporting for Vibe 105 with a Sports VIBEtalks segment where I'm happy to be joined by my guest today. He's going to be headlining the upcoming Bellator Dublin card in the main event against Benson Henderson. He is Peter, the Showstopper Queally. How you doing, Peter?
I'm very good, Giancarlo. How are you?
Doing great. And Peter, this is a big event coming up, and you unfortunately missed the last one there, Bellator Dublin. Just how was the recovery from your injuries, and do you feel like your old self coming into this one?
Yeah, I feel good. I had a broken rib was what put me out of the last fight, and then I had a shoulder problem for about a year before that fight that I needed to take care of. So I got that operated on. And I feel very good now. I do feel back to myself. I'm chomping at the bit to get back in here.
And what was that whole recovery from an injury like that? Because like you missed out there. It was after the Patricky fight. So like, did you feel injured going into that one as well?
I did. I felt okay in the first fight with him. And then I started getting this shoulder problem in the summer after that fight. And I did have a bit of an injury going into that, but it wasn't so bad that I couldn't put my gloves on and fight, and it's not an excuse. And I felt pretty good, but it was one of these nagging things that I needed to get taken care of before it became a real problem.
And now you're coming into this fight now against Benson Henderson. So were you surprised that they offered you Benson Henderson for this September card?
No, we're only a couple of spaces apart in the rankings. It probably made sense for me and him to fight. Especially with me and him, we're so close in the rankings to Patricky, and I just fought Patricky. He actually fought Patricky as well, so it kind of made sense that me and him would match up now.
And Benson Henderson, in his last fight, he snapped that losing streak that he had, and beat a tough guy in Islam Mamedov. What did you take away from that performance? Yeah,
just he looked like Benson. He looked like himself. He just looked like he always does. Good in the striking, very good in the grappling, like he always is. Full of energy, doesn't get tired. All these things I knew about him anyway. He didn't break any news in that fight. He just looked like himself. I thought he looked very good.
And obviously, when he was going into that fight, a lot of people were kind of downplaying, like maybe he's past it now. He was on the losing skid. But now that he comes up and gets that impressive win, are you extra motivated now to take on this Benson Henderson that he looks rejuvenated, and he's kind of looking like that Benson Henderson that went into that fight with Michael Chandler?
Yeah. I certainly did not think that before that last fight. I thought he was going to beat Islam, to be honest. I thought stylistically it was a very hard fight for Islam to beat someone like Benson, even though he's very good as well. But it was tough stylistically. It was a tough one. And I think Benson's kind of form woes stem from him taking fights at welterweight, to be honest, rather than his actual form. I think he's a bit too small. I've dabbled in welterweight myself, and you think you're tough and you think you're big and you're strong, but you're not when you get in with those big guys. It's hard. There's weight classes for a reason. So I think that's why he has struggled a little bit with his form is because he's been jumping around the weight classes more than anything.
And what are your experiences? Because I know you fought at welterweight too. You got a catch weight fight at 165. Is a weight cut difficult for you to 155, or is this more you feel your natural weight class?
Yeah, that catch weight one you're talking about was in Bellator a few fights ago, and that one was actually my opponent Ryan Scope reached out to me on the week of the fight and just said, "Look, do you want to just not cut weight and we'll fight at 170?" It was actually at 170 before that. And I didn't care. I know Ryan from the scene here. I've met him at press conferences and things. I know what size he is. He's about my size. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't care what way we fight at. I thought that was good. I enjoyed that. I wish we would do that more because we both prepared to fight at 155. So we were at a normal weight for a 155er. But then on the last few days, you just don't go through all that pain of cutting all the last bit of weight. So I think it worked out well. It was basically two 155ers fighting each other, but without the stupid weight cutting. So I thought that was a good idea.
It's interesting because some guys, they cut so much weight and you can tell there's big discrepancy when they're fighting their opponent who's more of a natural weight class. Do you think that's a problem or do you think it's being corrected now in MMA that the weight cutting is like evening out?
It's only being corrected in the sense that everyone does that now. You don't get the situation that you're describing where one guy is much bigger than the other anymore because everyone just does this now. Whereas I think, 5-10 years ago, some guys were experts at cutting weight, some guys weren't. And then you had sometimes where you get a guy, he'd be 10 pounds bigger than the other guy in the ring. Whereas I think everyone is so kind of good at it now. You don't really get that you don't really get that anymore, which makes it even stupider because there's no advantage to doing it. Like, I know there's going to be a pound or two between me and Benson in the ring. And that's it. But we'll still cut all this weight and do all this dance and whatever. I wish we could just fight at our normal weight sometimes. It's maybe we'll do that. Maybe he would be up for that. Who knows? Maybe we'll do that again. He likes fighting at 170 as well. So
with Peter Queally here on Vibe 105 Sports VIBEtalks segment. I'm Giancarlo Aulino, and Peter, this fight now against Benson Henderson, he's a guy who's a legend in MMA, former UFC lightweight champion. So what have you seen stick out from his career, and what is a fight that really stood out to you just looking back and watching film on him?
Let me think. That's a good question. The fights that it's not that any particular fight stood out to me. It's just that in general, you look at his whole body of work, he just displays a very, complete set of skills. That's what I would say about Benson. There's not much to pick holes in against him. Where sometimes when you watch a guy, you can see a very distinct weakness in them. No matter how good they are, you can kind of go, well, that's a problem for him, and I can exploit that. Whereas when I look at Benson, it's like there's not much really, to be honest. It's kind of he's pretty complete, and I'm just going to have to be, more man than him on the night. I know it's going to be a tough 25 minutes, but I'm going to make this hell for him, and I think I can get my hand raised.
And Benson, he's coming there on enemy territory for him because that hometown crowd there in Dublin, they're going to be cheering for you. What's it like for you? Like, is it kind of surreal in a way? Like, your face is going to be all over the city there, heavily promoted. Fans are paying to watch you in the main event, take on Benson, and just that crowd there in Ireland always shows out. So how are you feeling going into this?
Yeah, when I think about the situation I'm in now that you've just described, if you'd have told me this 10 years ago when I was sleeping in my car outside SBG, chasing this kind of impossible dream that I'd be, in the Tree Arena fighting Benson, I'd probably be more popular than him. I would have laughed at you. It was just not something that I thought was going to be possible. So I pinch myself every day with how lucky I've been, and I thank God that all my hard work has paid off, and I'm kind of getting what I deserve in the amount of work I've put in. And, it's a great privilege I have, and I count myself very lucky.
Yeah, and it's an inspiring story because you get to grow up and now in this environment there in Ireland where a lot of people I love watching it, even from me, in Canada, you get to see the Irish fans, how passionate they are, especially when you're coming out there to the Cranberries, Zombie. And can you describe that whole environment? Because I don't think it does it justice when viewers are watching on television and they see the crowd singing along as you're walking down to the cage.
Yeah, I always say this when people ask me about this, that I say exactly what you said, that as cool as it looks on TV, this is nothing compared to what it actually is when you're in the arena. The floor is nearly shaking when you're in there. It's so crazy. It's just and I don't know if you're familiar with this arena as well, the Tree Arena. Yeah. It's all of the crowd is on one side. It's built like a hand fan, so it's like a theater. So all of the 10,000 people are all on one side of the arena. So when you're in the ring, it's like this wall of pressure and sound all hitting you from one side. It's really unique. It's crazy. It's just a crazy feeling. And I told myself, actually, I'm going to try and enjoy it a bit more this time, because it's amazing. And sometimes I don't think I enjoy it as much as I should. I'm so stressed and I'm so focused. I don't even, enjoy it properly. But this time I'm going to try and just take it in and enjoy this thing as I'm walking down the ramp.
Yeah, just does it make it hard for you to even hear your corner at times? Because you're probably trying to keep it locked in there, keep yourself focused.
Nothing. Zero.
Wow.
Nothing. You know what's good about this fight is I've got the blue gloves on, so that means I'm ranked lower than Benson. So I'm going to come out first. So that means I've come out first once before in Ireland as well. And when I come out first, the crowd obviously sing Zombie as I'm coming out, but then when my music stops, they just keep singing. So I remember the last time I did it, it was against Ryan Scope, and he might as well have had no music on, because I couldn't tell you. If you offered me $1 million to tell you what song he played that night, you wouldn't know. There's not a chance. Even when you watch it on a replay, you can't even tell what song he's playing, because the crowd is singing so loudly over his music. And then that same night, when Michael C. Williams was introducing me, like fighting out of the blue corner or whatever, the crowd were still singing. And I remember looking at Michael C. Williams, and all I could see was,
wow.
You couldn't say anything. You couldn't hear him. It was crazy.
That's amazing. A couple final questions here with Peter Queally here on Vibe 105. Peter, obviously, after this fight, you have one win over Patricky. Then he beat you in the rematch. But if you have a dominant display here, do you think that it will hold more weight over guys like, I know AJ McKee's coming up in the division, and there's a lot of talk about him. But do you think this will hold more weight to book that trilogy if you and Patricky are successful?
Yeah, I think so. I think if I'm a bit lucky, it will. You know what I mean? It'll require a little bit of luck, and the dominoes kind of falling in the right places. But I think a win over Benson, someone like him, could definitely kind of get me right back to Patricky again. Now, in fairness, our division is pretty stacked. There's kind of guys there that are there and thereabouts and have a claim to fighting for the belt next as well. So, like I said, it will take some results to go my way and different things. But to answer your question, yes, I think I could find myself fighting Patricky again after this fight.
That's great. Looking forward to that. That would be a great fight. See that trilogy play out there, and hopefully in Ireland again. I think a lot of fans want to see you get that one back over there. But a final question here before we wrap up. I like to ask a lot of fighters what they are interested in aside from fighting. When you wind down and maybe put fighting on the back a little bit to focus on other things. Is there another sport or is there another hobby you enjoy doing?
When I'm training, I enjoy playing Warzone on the PlayStation. So I play this almost every night. When I get done with these interviews, I'm gonna jump on with the squad now and have a few games. So I like doing this at night time, and it's good. It's a good way to hang out with your friends and just chat. And so I like doing this at night time, and that's kind of my main kind of thing I wind down with after a night's training. Is I jump on and play some Warzone.
That's great. Before we wrap up here and let you go, how can our listeners and viewers here follow you on social media?
Yeah, so all my social medias are just my name. So Peter Queally, Queally. So at Peter Queally for Twitter and Instagram.
I highly recommend that follow, and I look forward to seeing you at Bellator Dublin, and I wish you all the best against Benson Henderson in the main event.
Okay, thanks so much, Giancarlo. I appreciate you. Very professional interview. I enjoyed that. Well done.
And now back to your Vibe 105.